All right, everyone. I wanted just to do a quick kind of overview on these essays for your midterm. And, you have the IDs, you have the essay, you have the review sheet. But what I also wanted to give you is just kind of some tips on how to organize them. I put it in kind of written form, but I know some people just prefer just hearing this and kind of getting a walkthrough on each of these essays. So this is kind of more of what to do, maybe what not to do in terms of organizing each essay. Okay, so I'm going to go through them in order. Number one, discuss the role of geography from pre-civilization cultures through the Roman Republic. How did geography impact all the various civilizations? The ones that we, of course, covered in class or might be information in your primary source reading or textbook or whatever. So first of all, do not organize that essay by, geographical feature. Don't give me a paragraph on rivers and a paragraph on mountains and then a paragraph on seas. Don't do it that way. What you always want to start with in every one of these essays, right? You always start, you have paragraphs, right? So your paragraph number one is always going to be your intro, right? Your introductory, which is just going to be very short paragraph restating the essay, something along the lines of geography was very important to multiple civilizations, such as, and then you list the civilizations you're going to discuss. And then you go to paragraph number two. And then your second paragraph on that essay, if we're doing that, so after your intro, your second paragraph is going to be picking your first civilization, or in this case, pre-civilization, because notice it does say pre-civilization here. So you would do things like talking about the Paleolithic period, glaciation, the impact that had on migration. It wouldn't be a lot. We didn't cover a lot of it, but you would talk about anything during that pre-civilization period. Then you go paragraph number three. Paragraph number three should probably be Mesopotamia. And there in Mesopotamia, we talk about again the Tigris and Euphrates, but this is where you also have to keep in mind not just talking about, well, they had rivers, so what, right? What impacts did the rivers have? And this is where you should be thinking, the impacts on politics, the impact on religion, the impacts on literature, if you remember, like the Epic of Gilgamesh as an example I gave you. And so you should be very thorough and very detailed. So that paragraph's going to be pretty long. You're not going to just write a couple sentences. It's going to be several sentences that you should go back and watch your lectures again on that essay, on that topic, and you'll get the details from it, right? Read your book, read the primary sources again. That's where you're going to get all this information from. So that would be paragraph number three. We said paragraph number four would be on Egypt. So again, don't just talk about the Nile, don't just talk about the deserts, explain why they're important. Paragraph number five would be maybe Minoans. Paragraph number six would be the Greeks. And then paragraph number seven would be the Romans, right? And there you would talk about the impact that the geography had on each of those. So that's how you would organize it. If you have time at the end, you should include a conclusion. You don't have to. I mean, I don't ding students if you don't include a conclusion. It's better if you do, and it'd be very brief, but I don't ding students on that. But what I will ding you on is if you just give me a brief list, and if you're not giving explanations as to how geography, cause and effect, how did it impact various things. And so as you're going through each civilization, you should be thinking of the impacts it had, again, on military battles, on art, on literature, but organize it by civilization, right? So that's how you would organize essay number one. Okay, hope that's clear. Essay number two. So for essay number two, what I would do on that one is again compare and contrast Athens, Sparta, right? So that's I'm just looking for my highlighter here. Right. All right, so compare and contrast Athens, Sparta. Similarities. What are their similarities? So again, paragraph number one is always, as always, going to be your intro. So you're just going to have an introduction. Paragraph number two on essay two would probably be your similarities, right? So you do your similarities, and you just give a paragraph on that. Then what do you do with it? Well, again, what don't I want you to do? What I don't want you to do on that essay is give me a whole punch on Athens and then a whole bunch on Sparta. That's okay, but it's better to what we call juxtaposition it, which means pick a topic, right? So maybe paragraph number three might be, and you can do this in kind of different orders. Everybody might do it differently, but might be the government, right? Just I'm going to abbreviate, and I know hopefully you can see that well. But the government of and then you talk about, this is the government in Athens and this is the government in Sparta. But again, if all you do is say, well, Athens was a democracy and Sparta was an oligarchy, that's not very strong. What you have to do is, I'm sorry, if Athens is a democracy and Sparta is an oligarchy, that's not very strong. You have to explain, this is why Athens is a democracy. Talk about Draco, Solon, Cleisthenes, and how Cleisthenes developed it and so forth. And this is what they did in Sparta. So you give some detail. What would be your next paragraph? Well, let's think about other things you can include. You could include a paragraph on women and compare them on that end. You could include a next paragraph on their raising children. Now, on that one, you'd probably spend more time on Sparta and a little less time on Athens, but you could do a paragraph on how they raise children. Maybe slavery, right? What's the difference between slavery in those two nations? What about their writers, their thinkers, their philosophers? You could definitely do a paragraph on that. So you could do government, you could do a paragraph again on women, you could do a paragraph on how they raise their kids, writers, slavery. There's definitely a bunch of different things, and I even think in your modules I have an outline that kind of hits the big things, so you can also use that as a guide. Now, when you're done, you're not completely done, because then look at what else I want you to do. It says, once you do that, and how did their differences impact the different decisions these polis made? So one of the other things you want to focus on is their core differences. Athens outgoing, Sparta's militaristic training. How did that impact them? How did it impact things that they did? Now, you could work that into the other paragraphs if you wanted to, or once you do the juxtaposition, you could just do a short paragraph on that and say, because Athens was outgoing, they got more involved, they got jumped into Persian more, whatever examples you want to use. But it is something I'm going to be looking for as well. All right, so that's essay number 2. All right, let's talk about essay number 3. I'm going to erase all this. Essay number 3, for that one, it's again pretty straightforward. Causes, impacts, Persian and Peloponnesian War. All right. So again, your paragraph number 1 is intro. Paragraph number 2, very obvious. Obviously, you do the causes of the Persian War, because that's what came first. Now, you can do that in one paragraph. Make sure you do the long-term and the short-term causes, right? So don't just think of things that just happened, boom, like sometimes people just start with Aeonian Revolt. Well, what about Cyrus earlier? And you get into that. So that would be paragraph number 2. Paragraph number 3 would be the impacts of the Persian War, right? That would be naturally paragraph number 3. And for there, people say, you need to talk about the battles. Well, if something happened in a battle that impacted things afterwards, you can kind of talk about that, but make the connection. Don't just talk about the battle for the sake of talking about the battle. What's the connection in terms of the impacts it had? The rise of Cimon, for example, in Athens. That would be something good to talk about through the Battle of Marathon. Then paragraph number 4 would be the causes of the Peloponnesian War. And so for there, you would just talk about, these are the causes of the Peloponnesian War, and kind of, again, it's all in your lecture on that, and you could just go back and listen to the lecture and make sure you explain all the causes. And then paragraph number 5 is what are the impacts of the Peloponnesian War. Now, one of the things as you get into that, think of the long-term impacts, right? Not just the immediate, right? What did all this mean to the Persian Empire? What did this all mean to the entire Greek world? What did it mean later on moving forward, eventually the rise of Alexander even? Think of the long-term impacts as well. But that's how you would organize that. The other thing on each of these essays, remember to use your primary sources. Whether it's the hymns you have on the Nile, whether it's something from the plays that we read from Athens that shows the Athenian writers. Every essay probably has something you can incorporate. You have primary sources from Herodotus and Thucydides that you could probably work into essay number 3. So anywhere you can work those things in, it's good. In terms of citing them, remember, you're not doing any outside research. I don't want you to do that. Do not copy and paste anything, as we talked about. Very important. You just want to, use the information, and you would just say, in the primary source reading, the Herodotus source, Thucydides source, or the Hymn of the Nile source says bobbity boppity boop, and then you're good. Okay? So that's how I would organize essay 3. All right, your final possible essay for the midterm is this one. Discuss the Roman values and characteristics. How did their values serve to enhance the Roman Republic in both foreign and domestic affairs? All right. So again, paragraph number 1 is again your intro, as always. Paragraph number 2, this is how I would organize this. So in your intro, you'd probably say something along the lines of, the Romans had the ability to adopt and adapt, solve problems, and had certain core values which really helped them succeed. I would organize it after that, not by that, example of doing these are all the problem solved. I would take events. So for example, I would take Etruscans, right? And maybe do a paragraph on the Etruscans. And what is it that the Etruscans, if you remember, Etruscans, sorry for the change of colors and all that. What is it that the Romans adopted and adapted from the Etruscans to help them out? Maybe you could do a paragraph on the Etruscans / Greeks, right? I know you can't see that well there, but then Etruscans and Greeks, and you just do a paragraph there explaining this is what the Romans took from the Etruscan Greeks. Then you might do a paragraph on the story of Cincinnatus and how Cincinnatus captures the core values of Rome. And so that might be paragraph number 3. Paragraph number 4, maybe you would talk about the struggle of the orders. That would be a good one, right? And how the Romans solved the problem of the struggle of the orders. Paragraph number 5, you could do the First Punic War. Paragraph number 6, the Second Punic War. Maybe throw in the Third Punic War as well. But again, what you need to do is not just say this is what happened in the war and talk about every detail of the war. You have to make the connection. So just as one example, if you're talking about in a paragraph the First Punic War, how did Rome adapt to win that First Punic War? If your intro tells me the Romans were really good at adapting or solving problems, well, give examples, right? And so that's how I would organize it. Now, take it by topical story or event, whether it's the First Punic War, Second Punic War, Third Punic War, story of Cincinnatus, Etruscans, Greeks, whatever the Romans took from them. All of that are really good examples. The other thing is you could really add to make that essay really strong is show what happens when they lose those values. How did the Roman Republic begin to suffer and decline? And maybe give a couple of examples of that. That shows you how important those values are. So that's essentially just a quick guide on how to organize each of the 4 essay topics. Again, follow the directions carefully about, making sure you're not doing anything that could be plagiarism, not copying and pasting things, prepping the key is just prepping all this stuff ahead of time. Make sure you have the details. And then in terms of the IDs, again, you already kind of have a video and information on how to do the IDs, going back all the way from the start of the semester. You have your sheet, what's an ASA, what's an AID. So you have all the resources you have. It's just a matter of putting in the time to get them organized and doing them well. So I hope this is helpful, just in terms of how to organize each essay. You can always just shoot me off an email if you have any questions. Other than that, that's pretty much all I have for you. That's it. Good luck. Study hard. Work hard. That's it. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.